Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Yags, and today I want to talk to you guys about the Damian Lillard situation. That's right. So Dame cleared waivers yesterday, and for the first time in his 13-year NBA career, he is an unrestricted free agent. So there's been rumors about a lot of teams that have showed interest in Damian Lillard, right? You have the Celtics, you have the Warriors, you have the Heat, you have several teams. We're going to talk about all of them here in today's video. But let's talk about Dame for a moment. He ruptured his Achilles in the Pacers series, so he most likely will not see the court next year. I highly doubt that he sees 1 minute. I would just, wait to rehab and come back in the 26-27 season. So with that in mind, I think there are a couple situations that are looming around. So you have the teams that are willing to maybe sign Dame now, have him rehab with the team, generate some chemistry, bring in a guy that could be at least a vocal veteran leader, right? Even though he's not on the court, he could help out a younger team or just, be a veteran leadership guy. He's a guy that has playoff experience. And also, if you bring him in now, you could also see how he's actually developed. So for when he actually gets on the court in the 26-27 season, you kind of know what you're actually going to get out of Dame. And then you have those other teams that maybe aren't willing to sign Dame just because he's not going to play this year and are not willing, to have that cap hit on their actual salary sheet for this year and are maybe just willing to take a chance on him next year on like a 1-year deal. I don't know. I think these are two things that may actually happen. So I'm very curious to see how that's going to go. And also another thing to keep in mind is that since the Milwaukee Bucks waived and stretched Dame, right, they're going to pay a majority of his salary. Right? So they're going to pay around $22 million a year for Dame over the next 5 years. So the team that actually signs Damian Lillard won't really pay that much. If he actually wants to get back to his $40 million a year contract, teams would probably need to give up around $18 million to sign him. But maybe if it's a contender, he could possibly bring that down to, 14, 15 mil to be around the mid-level exception. And that could possibly help teams out. So I'm very curious to see how he's going to approach that as well. So I think the first team, and though that's kind of been, on the radar, on Twitter, everywhere, it's the Boston Celtics, right? So there seems to be mutual interest from both parties, right? From Dame, from the Celtics, and getting Dame over to Boston. And I think it kind of makes sense up to a certain degree. So he's really good friends with Fernie Simons, right? That just came over from the Drew Holiday trade. Damian Lillard is a very good three-point shooter. So he could come in, and he can fit that system, that Joe Mazzulla system, to just chuck up a bunch of threes every single game. He could rehab besides Jason Tatum, right? I think him and Jason Tatum are also good friends. But, they could rehab together. They had the same exact injury. They're kind of going through the same thing and they're kind of in the same headspace. So I think that would also be kind of good. And he could give Boston, a true number one point guard, which is something that Boston hasn't had for, over the past at least 6 years. They haven't had, like a true point. I get, Derek Wright plays the point sometimes. Drew Holiday plays the point sometimes. So most of the time we had Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown kind of taking the ball up, and being the primary ball handler, which I don't like, right? How many times have we seen Tatum and Brown kind of dribble the ball off their foot in the fourth quarter, in a tie game with 45 seconds left? That's actually kind of crazy when you think about it. So where I would see Dame is kind of coming off the bench and being a spark plug, for that second unit. I would rather have Peyton Pritchard play the point going forward as the starting point guard for the Boston Celtics. And Dame, being an aging veteran, could come in and play that second role. But the big problem with the Celtics is that they're not a good defensive team. We don't know how it's going to be, but you lose KP, you lose Drew Holiday, you lose Cornette. There are several things that kind of happened this offseason, and I don't like how Dame fits on a bad defensive team, right? We saw what happened in Milwaukee. Milwaukee, I just don't think had the pieces around Dame and Giannis to compete whatsoever. So that equation, I don't really like a lot. But it is a very big possibility that he goes to the Boston Celtics. Another team that's kind of been floating around is the Golden State Warriors, right? So I think Dame fits the Warriors timeline really well, right? If they go and sign him to a 2-year contract, he will basically be a free agent when all the other, the other 3 stars are going to be free agents. So Draymond, Jimmy, and Steph, their contracts would all end at the same exact time. So that would kind of give them like a 1-year to prove it deal to try and win it all for one last time before, they kind of ship everybody out. So I think that would be pretty cool, right? Steph can play without the ball super well. He's one of the best players in the league at playing without the ball. But we kind of run into the same problem that we have with the Celtics. I don't think that defensively, the Golden State Warriors have a team that would be built around, a bad defensive backcourt around Steph and Dame, right? I think they would just need more defensive specialists on that team to make that work, but I can see it happening. I can definitely see it happening. I think the timeline fits really well. And I think it would be really interesting to see, Dame play with Steph and actually have Steph play a more of an off-ball role. I think that'd be actually pretty cool. Another team that's been floating around is the Los Angeles Lakers. So the Lakers didn't have the best offseason. They've actually had a pretty bad offseason in most people's point of view, including mine. But I think they're a team that could actually sign Dame. They don't have many point guards. They have Luka Doncic, and after Luka Doncic, who is their actual point guard? They don't have one. So you could have Dame rehab, get that chemistry. We don't know if LeBron's going to be there. There's been a lot of drama around LeBron over the past couple of weeks, but maybe he sticks around, right? For another season or two. And they could, much like the Warriors, try to get that last push and try to get that last title with Dame, Doncic, DeAndre Ayton and LeBron James. I don't know how that would work. I think that would be a very Laker-esque move to do, right? We know the Lakers have liked to sign aging veterans over the past couple of years. You had Westbrook, you had Carmelo Anthony at the time. So, it's something that they like to do. So maybe getting Dame would be an option. Is that actually going to make them a whole lot better? No, probably not. But Dame is a guy that scores 24 points a game for the past 10 years, right? Like I said, he's really good at shooting the ball. He's a good pick and roll player. He is an offensive threat to whoever actually signs him. So the Miami Heat is also a name that floats around a lot. Remember in 2023 when Dame was actually traded to the Bucks, he had a lot of interest to go to Miami, right, and play with Jimmy Butler. They were coming off that run that they made to the finals. Maybe that's gone now. Maybe Dame just wanted to play with Jimmy Butler, which we come back to the Warriors theory, which makes a lot of sense. But Miami right now, although the Dame fit in Miami does make a lot of sense, okay, in terms of a basketball point of view, right? He could be the starting point guard for that team. I know Davion Mitchell is there. They just drafted Kasper Siakousonis, who hasn't played well whatsoever. So maybe Dame does make sense in Miami. I just don't think he really fits the timeline. I think that team is a little bit younger, and Dame would probably want to go to a more of a win now type of team. And I just don't think Miami is that team right now. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but maybe it could happen. The Portland Trail Blazers, I think, is an obvious pick here, right? You have a guy who was the star for Portland coming back, being a guy that could mentor that young core of Portland. They're not going to win a chip, right? They're probably not even going to compete. It's more of a sentimental legacy type of thing that would go on for the Portland Trail Blazers, right? Have Dame come back, mentor Scoot Henderson, mentor that young Portland team, which, by the way, I think they are a very good team. They could be a problem in the next couple of years, but Portland might have a shot, right? They might have a shot. I think something to keep in mind. And now we kind of start getting into the dark horse. I think the coolest team that I would like to see Dame go to is the Orlando Magic. Okay, so hear me out. So the Orlando Magic are built to have a player like Damian Lillard. They are a very, very good defensive team. They have a young core, but it's a young core that can compete right now. The Magic could very well win the East. They could very well win the East. So you bring in Dame, although that backcourt is kind of loaded at the moment. But if you bring in Dame, right, he could be a guy that can rehab, come off the bench, be a spark plug, for that second unit. You have Desmond Bane. Jalen Suggs is a guy that is better playing as a shooting guard than he is as a true point guard. I actually have no idea who's going to play as the point guard. They just got Tyus Jones as well. They got Jace Richardson. So there's a lot of names over there in that backcourt, but it's a team that could really benefit from having Damian Lillard, right? So he comes off the bench, gives you, 15, 18 points a game. And then you got, the young pieces. You got Franz, you got Banchero, you got Desmond Bane. Dame to the Magic would be something. Just think about it, which is the same thing for the Rockets, right? So the Rockets also have a really, really good defensive team. Dame comes in, at a cheap contract, plays next to Kevin Durant, another guy, they don't have a lot of backcourt players. You got Fred VanVleet. Who's your other starting point guard? I have no idea. You could have Dame play that role, and I think it'd be really good. You got the Minnesota Timberwolves. You got an aging Mike Conley. You got Rob Dillingham. Maybe Dame comes in, mentors Rob Dillingham. They've made the conference championship 2 years in a row. Is a team that has the ability to win the West, right? They've been to the conference finals. And Denver and Dallas are also names, that I could possibly see them going to, right? Dallas, I know Kyrie's also hurt. He should come back probably at the end of the year if he comes back whatsoever. But you got Dame when he comes back. You got second year of Cooper Flagg. That would be pretty interesting. I really like that Dallas Mavericks team. If they can stay healthy, they will be a problem in the West this year. No doubt about it. And then, the 26-27 season with Dame, they could be more of a problem. And then you got the Nuggets, right? The Nuggets, they've made a lot of offseason moves this year, but you bring in Dame, you make that bench even better. A guy to play behind Jamal Murray, a guy that can play, well without the ball in those dribble handoffs with Jokic. I think he would be a really good fit in Denver as well. But yeah, a lot of names going around for Damian Lillard. A lot of things could happen. I am very curious to know what you guys think. Leave it down in the comments. Where do you think is the best fit for Dame, and where do you think he's actually going to go? As always, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to hit those 1,000 subscribers, so you guys really help me out with that. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.